It's the biggest night of the year for video games. Welcome to the second annual Odie Awards. This is Ode to Games. I'm Logan Plant, joined by Zach Rost. Hi, Zach.
How's it going?
It's going great. Very excited to wrap up 2021, awarding the best games of the year with you and with Kevin Vallene. Hello, Kevin.
Been waiting for this all year.
All year since the last one.
Yeah.
We spend 6 months out of the year planning this show. Hundreds of people work on it. Now it's just us three, but we're ramping it up a little this year. We got a trophy, as discussed on previous episodes of Ode Games. This is Odie, from the Biomutant Collector's Edition, a game that came out this year that none of us played,
and yet we have talked about on numerous occasions.
Yeah,
for whatever reason.
Unfortunately, I wasn't able to spray paint it gold. It's been really snowy and icy here the last week, so I didn't have time to drive over to the store to pick up some spray paint. But he's still here. Maybe that'll be how we ramp up the production next year.
We got to keep it a little down this year so that we can improve next year.
Gotta leave some room for this show to grow over time. But we've got a fantastic awards show for you this evening. We're going to get it started with our favorite games that actually didn't come out in 2021. Then we'll move on to the biggest surprises and disappointments of the year. I bet you can guess the biggest disappointment of 2021. Stay tuned for that. Then we'll move into our top 5 games of the last 12 months, and we'll end it with our big showcase Odie Game of the Year awards. We've got 5 big categories to wrap up the show with. For those of you here for the hottest new segment on the show, Rumor Roundup, Sonic Frontiers edition, that'll be come back in the new year. We're taking a week off for that. Before we get started, though, I want to show something off real quick.
Ooh.
That my sister made me as a Christmas gift. I sent you guys both a picture of this, but this is an II plush from Monkey Ball that she knitted herself. Look at that. Look at his little tail. That's exactly what he looks like in the games when he's running around. So
Where's his ball?
he's not in a ball.
He's
out. He's free. He's here
escaped
to watch the Odies tonight. He may be mentioned
Live
in
audience.
the Odies. Yeah, he may be a little disgusted with how he's mentioned, but we'll save that for a little later. Let's get it kicked off with Ode to our favorite games this year that didn't come out this year. We've each got 3 games written down here. Kevin, why don't you run us through your list?
Yeah, so starting it off with Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. This is a game that came out a decade ago on the Wii, and then a little bit more recently on the Switch, but didn't come out this year. I believe that was 2020 that came out.
Yeah.
But Xenoblade Chronicles is a fantastic game. I think that it really helped that it escaped the Wii, because as great as that game was on the Wii, it just didn't look very good. So to get it cleaned up on Switch with all of the added content, with the future connected storyline to kind of wrap up the story, it was great to see it come back and reach a new amount of people after some people played Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and were able to go back and experience the definitive edition of the first game. My second is Spiritfarer. Love that game, and I'm very excited to go back and play the DLC. The last bit of DLC just dropped, so I'll be playing that in the early parts of 2022 and get final thoughts on the entire game itself. But really moving story. Love the characters. Just love the building of the ship and resource management. The game itself was fun, and the stories were very memorable with the different characters that you have to send to the afterlife. And then last, I've got 13 Sentinels, another story-driven game. A little hard to wrap your head around sometimes, but it was one of the most interesting experiences that I had playing a game this year. And it really is like no other, hopping between all of these different characters and seeing the story play out from all of these different perspectives. You have the combat section where it's kind of the RTS strategy game of defeating the aliens that are coming in to try and kill everybody. But I think the story is where it really shines, with the asymmetric style of it, where you are hopping between these different characters and they're not always interconnected, but they all come together at the end. I would highly recommend it for anyone who is looking for a story-driven game. 13 Sentinels is highly regarded.
So, Kevin, out of your 3 nominees, which one does the Odie go to for your favorite of these 3 that didn't come out this year?
We're going to be giving it out a couple of times tonight. We have multiple trophies.
We're going to be giving it out like 15 times.
Ooh, that's tough.
Tension's building.
Yeah. I am going to give it to Spiritfarer.
Oh, the Odie goes to Spiritfarer.
Yeah, Spiritfarer.
Nice.
for the game that
Let's
made
go.
me cry this year.
Okay.
Very good
All
game.
right.
I'm excited to go back and play some more.
Zach, we'll move on to you. Your nominees, your 3 favorite games that you played this year that didn't come out.
Yes, my 3 favorite games I played this year. That being said, I played a lot of games this year, so this was a very hard decision to make. Honorable mention, I know Logan was confused that Halo's not on my list. I didn't put Halo on my list because my favorite Halo that I played this year was Halo 2, which is one of the Halos I've played in previous years. So I figured I wouldn't give it a spot because only the new Halos I played this year were like 4 or 5, Reach. Reach is great, but since it wasn't 2, which is my favorite, I figured I'd just throw some love to some other series that I played this year. And to kick it off, I'm going to give it to Ace Attorney Trials and Tribulations, which is the 3rd one in the original trilogy. This was my first playthrough of the entire series. It kicked off this year after a lot of negging by Logan over the years. He has wanted me to get into the series for a long time. He finally wore me down. I got the trilogy for full price
On Xbox.
on Xbox.
What a weird play.
It was a mess, but I bought them and I played them, and I loved them tremendously. And I think the best one by far was the 3rd one in the original trilogy. I am currently on the 6th game in the 10-game series, so I am very quickly making my way through. But I didn't even play the one that came out this year. So first off, I would love to give it to Ace Attorney Trials and Tribulations. And then next up is a game that Logan and I started playing at the beginning of the year. And we recently picked it back up as in yesterday. And that's Divinity Original Sin 2. This game has incredible depth, both in content, and it's just a huge world that you can go around in. It's so big that the loading screen at the beginning takes like 2 minutes just to get you into the game, which is one of my only complaints for this game. It is chock full of stuff to do. It's very D&D adventure with your friends, choose your own path, which makes it very difficult. We do have a lot of challenge in this game, but it's fun overcoming those challenges, especially with your party of friends. So definitely loved picking that game up this year. That's another game that I've wanted to try out for a long time, just never did. And then lastly is Gone, which is a game that I played
Oh, boy.
mostly on a joke, and it's a perfectly fine game. But I put it on this list because I just loved talking about it on this show because it made for a lot of good jokes. And I enjoyed talking about the times when I would go through the game and then buildings just wouldn't load and I had to use context clues on where staircases were, but they were invisible. And I had to use the Molotov reticle in order to see where geometry was on the map. That game was broken at times, but it was definitely a fun time to play and an even more fun time to talk about. I mean, I'm glad I got it out of the way so I don't have to think about that game anymore.
Until the sequel.
So,
There's
no sequel. Sequel
The
not
non-existent
confirmed,
sequel.
is not happening.
And Zach, who does the Odie go to?
I'm gonna give my Odie Trials and Tribulations.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Ace Attorney,
Nice.
Trials and
Fantastic.
Tribulations.
Attorney game.
Taking
Year
it home.
Just chock full by Ace Attorney for everybody, all 3 of us.
So, Zach, I wanted to ask you, you said it was going to be the year of Castlevania.
I played 2 Castlevania, 2.5 Castlevanias. Is that not enough?
Did you have something else that was the year of?
Mario.
Oh, I had
Mario
so long ago.
left the
I played-
building a long time ago.
I played 2.5 Marios.
2 Castlevanias, 2.5 Marios, but really for you, it turned into the year of Halo and the year of Ace Attorney.
Yep. Pretty much. I don't know which one overtook. Probably Halo. I think it's the year of Halo officially. In sheer number of Halos played.
The number of hours Ace Attorney games were
Ace
much
Attorney
longer.
number of hours probably.
Yeah. The year of Mario.
What a year.
What a year
Played
for
the
Year of
64.
Luigi. Just an utter
Indie
failure.
World.
Mario.
I just didn't really like Sunshine.
That's
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah,
It's
got
tough to get through.
It's got problems.
Yeah.
All right, my nominees for favorite game this year that didn't come out this year. F-Zero GX on GameCube, which I have played before this year, but really dove into it this year. Last year, 2020, was really the year I discovered F-Zero and how much I loved the series. But there was a point in this year where I dove back in hard to F-Zero GX and unlocked almost all the tracks, almost everything you could, and got really good at that game. And man, it just makes me wish the series was still alive, because it then sent me on a journey to try and discover games on modern platforms that are like it, like Fast RMX, a couple others. There's that Aero GPX game, which is an indie kind of love letter to the F-Zero series that's coming out next year that looks really great, but nothing feels as good as F-Zero. And it just makes me yearn for those days of Amusement Vision, Sega, and Nintendo, the collaborations with this game and then the Monkey Balls, how good they were, and that studio that just doesn't exist anymore. But yeah, F-Zero GX is phenomenal racing game. Then Divinity Original Sin 2, Zach touched on it. This game is brutally difficult for us. I think we're really bad at it. I don't think we fully understand everything that's going on. But it's a really fun world to be in, and just some of the funny things that happen. I know we talked about this before, but the time where we're lizards and this one woman insulted me for being a lizard, so I murdered her in the back of this kitchen, and it turned out she was a serial killer that we had been tracking down. Just this random lady who worked in the kitchen. Just some really fun moments because of how much freedom there is to choose to do really whatever you want to do. Today even, we couldn't get past this fight, so we needed to get through this door that we needed to blow up. But if you blew up the door in front of these people guarding it, they would fight you. So we were standing like a mile away, and Zach just shot arrows at it for like 2 minutes until it broke, and then we just waltzed through. So just really fun things you can do to kind of make your own path and have your own story that's unique to everyone else that plays the game. So that's really good. And then I wrote a couple games down here for my third slot because I don't really know how to treat either of these games. I wanted to mention Fall Guys because it got a ton of new content this year since it is an ongoing game, and Zach and I and Kevin a couple times still played this game a ton, and I really like a lot of the seasons that came out this year. Season 6, which is going on right now, is great. Some of the costume collaborations and the new shows and modes they've introduced have been a lot of fun. So a strong first year of content for Fall Guys, so I just wanted to mention that. And then something that was new for you guys, but semi-new for me, was Mario 3D World, which plus Bowser's Fury on Switch, one of the last remaining Wii U games to get brought over this year. And I played this to death on the Wii U, but Bowser's Fury was totally new. But just replaying through that 3D World campaign with you guys and with a couple other people on a separate file was just, it reminded me of how much I love that Mario game. I think it's such a great multiplayer experience, so I wanted to mention it here.
What does the Odie go to?
The Odie goes to, I got to give it to F-Zero GX. I think that game is phenomenal. Yeah, I'm just so impressed with its design and its courses. I think that it's just so well designed, and the series needs to come back, and hopefully this Odie will give the series some traction.
This is what it took.
Yeah, we'll see. 2022 Return of F-Zero, thanks to this Odie.
Thanks to the Biomutant statue.
Yeah.
Thanks
to Odie himself.
Yeah. What a guy.
All right, Zach, I'm going to throw it over to you so we can go through the next segment of the Odies.
All right, we'll be moving on to our next big segment of the Odies. We're going to be talking about our biggest surprises and biggest disappointment, singular, of the year.
One game.
We will each go through our biggest of each. We're going to start out with Kevin. What was your biggest surprise of the year?
Oh, we're ending on the negative?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Okay.
Well,
we'll swing it back around again. The next segment will be bringing it back up.
Yeah.
My biggest surprise, I'm going to go with Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury. Bowser's Fury because I didn't know what to make of it exactly. You know, it was being added on to Mario 3D World, and so you kind of expect that it's not going to be anything too special. It's like, oh, here's this little add-on mode for the game just so that, you know, maybe we can move some more units. But I was really surprised by how quality it was and how much fun it was just sitting down in like one or two sittings and just blasting through that game with its completely interconnected world. Was a super fun experience, and it got me wondering about what is going to come next for 3D Mario, because I feel like it's a window into the future. We already had Super Mario Odyssey, and this is kind of an extension of that in terms of just this interconnected world, and I think they've opened the door to a lot of possibilities for the future. And then 3D World, it's pretty much new to me. I played it a couple of times throughout the years, but never really got super into it because I didn't have a Wii U. But just playing it with you guys was super fun. And yeah, kind of caught me off guard with how much I would like it, because seeing it over the years, it was just like, oh, it looks like the one on the 3DS with some multiplayer added. It's like, okay, that's cool, that's fine. But I really did have a blast playing it in multiplayer with you guys. So
it's a game that really doesn't show well. I've always felt that way about 3D World. People blasted it the E3. It was originally shown back in 2013, and they're just like, oh, it's just HD 3D land with cats and multiplayer. But when you play some of these levels, it's just one of these things that the Mario franchise and few others can do. It's just such pure joy all the way through, and just really creative level design that can get really hard in some of the bonus levels.
Yeah.
So yeah, it plays much better than it shows.
Yeah, so that was my biggest surprise. Am I going to go to my disappointment?
We would probably save it, right, Zach?
We can do a round of surprises and then do a
right.
collective disappointment.
Yeah, I just want to say real quick on Bowser's Fury too. It's cool because the level and the actual platforming in it is more like what you find in 3D Land and 3D World, but then the structure is totally open like Odyssey. So it just felt like this really cool mishmash of ideas that turned into something that Mario's never really done before. So I just thought it was really cool just traveling to these different places and kind of running into this like Mario Galaxy level that's just sitting here, and you just do it and then you leave. And then Bowser showing up got a little old. I think that was my only real criticism of it, was that he showed up a lot, but just that was a really, really cool experience this year too. And it was some of the coolest added content we've seen Nintendo tack on to the Wii U ports to Switch. Better than Funky Mode, that's for sure.
Yeah, a lot better than Funky Mode that cost $10 extra.
Worth it for the funk.
All right, we'll move on to my biggest surprise. I think my biggest surprise of the year by far was Forza Horizon 5. I have really enjoyed playing simulation racers in the past, but none of them that I ever played really hooked me as much as this series has. And not only that, just getting a Series S and then having it day one on Game Pass completely for free was just incredible. Going in, playing Forza Horizon 4 before 5 came out, I knew that the series was really good and that I'd like it a lot moving into 5. But 5 itself was just so encapsulating. You just love, like Logan said, you just go into the world and you can just drive around and just enjoy the world as it is. You don't even have to do races. It's just so gorgeous to look at. The racing is so smooth. It feels really great. It's just, I've never really loved a simulation racer as much as I have loved Forza Horizon 5. And I see myself putting a lot more time into it than I already have this year. It's just been a lot of fun.
That's the Odie.
Now, the Odie. Now we'll be moving on to our biggest disappointments of
what about my surprise?
2021.
I'm skipping my surprise.
Yeah.
Oh,
you
wait.
got no surprise for Logan.
Oops, I forgot you had a surprise.
It's only disappointments with Logan.
What is it?
My biggest surprise is Mario Party Superstars. I felt like that's the Odie going to Mario Party. Congrats. Ooh. I feel like this year was a very mid to early 2000s year for a lot of series that kind of came back. Like Monkey Ball came back, Mario Party, WarioWare, No More Heroes came back. It was a lot of series that haven't been around in the 2010s at all that came back. And Mario Party, first of all, we didn't know about it at all until E3. So for them to come out this year and then be as good and take as much of my time as it did was really surprising. Mario Party has not been good since Mario Party 8 on Wii, and I don't even like that one very much. 7 on GameCube is the last time I really enjoyed a Mario Party, yet I still continued to pick them all up and just be disappointed in the final product. And them going back to the N64 games and remaking 100 mini-games from across the first 10 Mario Party games and adding online play that is one of the smoothest online experiences I've ever seen Nintendo make. It was just a really, really good package. And actually, this past week when I was visiting family for the holidays, we played every Mario Party 1 through 10 on the original consoles they were on. And more, the more we kept playing these ones that I was like, maybe this one's better than Mario Party Superstars. It was like, no, I think Superstars is the best Mario Party has ever been. Just because of the graphics and the minigame selection, the gameplay, the online functionality, just all of it is the best the series has ever been, which I never thought I'd be saying based on the trajectory of this franchise over the past 13 years. So that was by far the game that surprised me the most this year.
Mario Party's back.
It is back. Now make another one.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Now they have
That's
to
actually
continue
new.
this new trajectory.
Yeah.
But it's
Or
gonna
just
go
add
downhill.
DLC. Because I want it. There's only 5 boards, which is a little low for a Mario Party game like we talked about. So they could just add a couple of GameCube era
Yeah, that
boards.
seems ripe for that.
Yeah, it would be amazing.
Oh, now we'll move on to our biggest disappointments of 2021. We've got a couple to talk about, but one much more prevalent than the other. The upside down Odie,
The upside down Odie.
as you will. I think we'll start this one off with Logan since he's got a couple disappointments to talk about.
Yeah, I have an honorable mention. I just can't go without mentioning this one. I mentioned my friend Ai is here at the Odies tonight, and unfortunately, he's the recipient of my honorable mention for biggest disappointment.
Wow, the only audience
Banana
member we
Mania.
have is for the disappointing game.
He got a bad Odie.
Because I still love him. I'm not mad at him. Yeah, I showed Banana Mania to my parents over the last week because we used to play Monkey Ball a lot. And I was just like, yeah, the physics are terrible, so it's not as good for people who are super into Monkey Ball like me. And then I was like, oh, but for casual players like you guys, you might still enjoy it. But then I was like, oh, wait, no, you won't, because there's no multiplayer. So it's just like, this game is made for nobody. It doesn't feel as good. They stripped out a core feature. The party games feel bad. It was just such a disappointment after like a year and a half of the announcer hyping this thing up on his Instagram. For it to be what it turned out to be was just super disappointing. And I've only played it for like 5 hours when I played the Monkey Ball 2 the last 3 years for like 100 hours, and for this game to barely take up more than an afternoon of my time was a big bummer. And this is a series, unlike Mario Party now, that I have hope for, that I think is forever dead and will never be what it once was. And that's just really disappointing.
All right, that's your honorable mention, but we do have more to talk about in terms of a very disappointing experience for all three of us this year. That, my friends, is It Takes Two, a game that we were all very excited for when it was originally announced because of how much we loved Haze Light Interactive. Is that who created it? I don't even remember.
Yeah,
the creators of A Way Out. We all absolutely loved A Way Out. The local co-op mechanics were just so integrated so beautifully into this game that we thought they would translate very well into their next release. And they really didn't. This game was a disappointment on so many levels, and it won all 3 of our collective disappointment of the year. Does anyone have any thoughts on why this made their most disappointing game of 2021?
It became grating to play by the end of it, which is never a good thing.
And we're not even close to the end.
Yeah,
we're not even close.
Maybe halfway.
We only made it about halfway through for the most part before we couldn't take it anymore. Even at the end, we started skipping cutscenes, ignoring dialogue. We just focused on the gameplay, and even that didn't push us through.
Yeah, the story is my biggest qualm. The characters are incredibly unlikable. They don't maybe they have some like miraculous change at the end, but they do not grow through the first half of this game. And then you get to the point at the halfway mark where they're just despicable, and there is a really nasty scene where if you're already feeling this game wasn't for you, that scene will for sure just stomp it out. Once that happened, it was over. I just didn't want to play it anymore. Yeah. And the gameplay, there were some fun moments for me. I thought that there were some good ideas in there, and I had some fun with it, but I don't think it lasts through the runtime. Again, we only got halfway through, and by that halfway mark, I felt like I was becoming less and less interested in the ideas that it had on offer. Some of the earlier game ideas I had some fun with, but man, some of the mid-game ones, I don't even remember what we did. Like, it was just kind of like running around in this world. The mini-game selection that they had was incredibly unbalanced. Like, whenever we would stop and do those like side mini games, one person would just absolutely demolish the other person, no matter what the game was. Someone would pick the right spot and just win every time. Where it was like, you look at A Way Out and you're just like, oh, let's play Connect 4, or let's do these little like, let's jump on the wheelchairs or whatever. Like, it didn't feel like it was really unbalanced. Connect 4, because it's just a regular game, so the regular game isn't unbalanced. But the other ones were small enough where it was just kind of like a little bit of fun in between. But yeah, there's seemingly no point for the mini games because someone was just gonna lose depending on what they picked. Yeah, hyped up for this game after A Way Out, and it let me down a lot. It actively pissed me off by the end of the game, even more so that it won all of these Game of the Year awards. I don't understand.
That was the bitterest moment.
And it's not even like
awards.
In years past, I feel like some of these games get picked, and there's like a lot of internet discourse being like, I don't think so. Like, that didn't deserve. This game should have won. I feel like 90% of it is like, yes, this game deserved to win, or like, I'm glad that this game won, and I just don't understand it. Happy for the guy. The creator seems like an absolutely great dude. Love the guy. The game itself, I do not ever want to play it again.
Yeah, this is obviously no shade at the developers or Joseph Fares or anyone who made the game. Like, we're obviously happy for them and its success, and we love A Way Out, the game they previously made. This was it was shocking to me to see A Way Out fly so under the radar. And I've even talked to a few people. I was, during the Game Awards, I was like, man, I think A Way Out runs circles around this game. And people are like, no, A Way Out's not that good. This was better. I'm like, how can you think that? I don't, it's just totally differing opinions that I don't understand. But yeah, the gameplay is so boring. Kevin, you mentioned not remembering what you did. It's because the change-ups all just start to feel the same because the puzzle design is so simple. It's something I won't get into it all again, but I talked about how them not exploring these concepts just makes them all so grating to play. Where in A Way Out, it wasn't just changing gameplay, it was changing genre. So it's super memorable. You're like, oh, this is a top-down like shmup now. This is a 2D fighting game now. Or in A Way Out, it's like, okay, I have the hammer, you have the nail. I have the positive magnet, you have the negative magnet. It had that like Diablo style thing for a while, but that was boring. It's just not very entertaining to play. And a decent gameplay can be carried by a really compelling story, but the story's worse than the gameplay. The book, who you guys didn't mention yet, is unbearable to listen to.
Every time he shows up, it's just like, no, go away.
So yeah, we didn't finish it. Zach and I may get there someday. It's doubtful, but we'll see.
Set it to abandoned.
Oh no!
I have also put it to abandoned.
I do not believe I will be going back to It Takes Two, even if Logan does hold out a little bit of hope.
So we'll have to see, but just a big disappointment. Zach, anything to add?
No, I think you guys covered it pretty much exactly. My sentiments. It's a lot of high hopes dashed by a lot of disappointing choices, especially coming off of the highs of A Way Out. So definitely deserving of our biggest disappointment of 2021.
No, sad.
I know, very sad.
Disappointing.
Yeah.
All right.
Why don't we move over to a more positive note? We're getting closer to the end of this show. First, we've got our top 5 games of 2021. Before we get into the actual Odie's Game of the Year for our 5 categories, we have each picked out 5 games, 4 for me, because I don't play new games apparently. But there's a caveat there, and I'll get into that in a minute. But we each picked 5 games that came out this year for our top games of 2021. I'm going to throw it to Zach first. You want to run through your list of your top 5 games?
Are we going around doing all our 5s, all our 4s?
We can do that. Number 5.
That's the best way to do this. Number 5. I had to give my number 5 to Monster Hunter Rise, a game which I really enjoyed. I put over 100 hours into back in the beginning of the year. It came out in March. This was a game we were very excited to play, Logan and I, and I've played most of it with Logan as my hunting partner. We were huge world fans, set us off into this spiral of Monster Hunter love. We were very excited for Rise to come out. We spent the whole weekend playing it. Had a great time. We do have our qualms with the game, of course. It's way too easy. There was lacking in content in the beginning. It did release new monsters and new content and is currently still doing so, but not enough to really keep us engaged. Like, we had a ton to do in World. And it just kept us busy for a very long time. I put over like 400 hours into that game, so that is the difference. But nevertheless, still absolutely loved Rise as a game. I love the new additions to the monsters, the aesthetic of Kimura Village, how they handle the weapons with the wire bug system. I absolutely love the wire bug system, especially when it comes to heavier weapons. You get a lot of more mobility with those types of weapons, which I tend to lean towards anyways. So I like that a lot. So having put so much time into it and enjoying it so much in the beginning of the year, definitely felt like it deserved a spot on my list.
This game, this would be my 6. It just missed my list. I feel like I might like it better than some of the games on my list, but it just had the highest of expectations because of World, which it didn't quite meet. But still, a couple things to add on to what you said. This is a Switch game that runs amazingly. Still unbelievable how fast the load times are and how good the game looks and runs. Yeah, you said some cool new monsters. Goss Harag, the big Yeti guy, is like the coolest
Absolutely
monster
amazing
in the series. Riding around on the dogs is awesome. The wire bug is awesome. So there's a lot of really cool stuff here. I guess my takeaway from Rise is, one, I hope Sunbreak is harder. I hope there's some more meat on the bones for I guess we're veterans now, because now we're complaining about how easy a new entry is. For veterans like us who want a little bit more challenge, I hope that Sunbreak brings that with its master rank. But beyond that, I hope that Worlds 2, or whatever the next primary Monster Hunter game is, does take some of these innovations from Rise and add them in, but just put it in a more challenging game like Monster Hunter World was. But yeah, Rise is a really great game, and we'll be talking about it more next year with the big expansion.
All right, Logan, you're 5. If it's not Monster Hunter Rise, what is it?
It is Forza Horizon 5, a game which Zach and I finished. I don't know if Zach mentioned that. But yeah, we finished it earlier this week. We got into the Hall of Fame, which we kind of are calling the ending of like the main story. Credits didn't roll or anything, but it feels like the end. But there's still stuff to do around the map and plenty to do. And yeah, this game was almost my biggest surprise. I really, really enjoyed my time with it this year and not nearly done with it. I have never cared about car sim racers, anything like that. We played even that one game at Kevin's apartment. I don't even remember the title of it. It was like a truck racing game, or we were racing in the snow. It wasn't Excite Truck. No? It was something on Xbox.
Burnout?
Maybe it was Burnout. I can't remember what we played, but I was horrible at it. And I'm like, man, I just like kart racers. I don't like racing real cars. And this game just totally turned me around on that, just because of its open world elements. I think it might be my favorite open world ever. I'm not a huge open world guy, but it's just so much fun to drive around this thing. It is gorgeous. I enjoyed 4, but then 5 was just a huge step up for me. The multiplayer is a lot of fun. There's so much customization that I feel like we haven't even dove into, like customizing events. How many laps do you want to do? How hard do you want the computers to be? You can like build your own tracks. You can create your own jumps. Like you can say, you have to jump off this hill and you have to make it this far to complete like my user generated challenge. There's just so much content in this game, to the point where it's getting more recognition than I've ever seen a driving or racing game get than this. Like it's won some Game of the Year awards this awards season, and deservedly so. It's a huge exclusive. Not having to pay $70 for it, like Zach said, was a huge deal. Just getting to install it and then just jump in the moment it came out with pre-install through Game Pass is just amazing. And yeah, I really, really love this game. And I know Zach loves it too, and Kevin likes the series, and will absolutely love it when he plays it eventually too.
Oh yeah, very excited to play it whenever I get my Xbox. All right, me. No number 5.
It Takes Two?
I don't want to put that thing anywhere near a top 5 list for me. Let's move to number 4. Zach, what is your number 4 game of 2021?
My number 4 game of 2021 is a game I played fairly recently, and that's Metroid Dread, the first game in the Metroid series that I have ever touched, and it was phenomenal. I have been a fan recently of the Metroidvania style of games, given the Castlevanias that I've played recently and the amount of love I've given for that series. So definitely excited to hop into a Metroid game. This one was getting a lot of praise. I borrowed Logan's copy, so didn't even have to buy this game either. So far, I've spent $0 on my bottom 2 games of the year, so that's fun. And then I hopped in. I had to
You bought
race
Monster
through it.
Hunter Rise.
For some reason, I was thinking it was Forza. All right, we'll get there eventually.
later. Spoilers.
So Metroid Dread. Didn't know what to expect going in story-wise. I didn't really know anything about the story of Metroid Dread. It's a pretty simple story. Samus has to go to this planet because it's infested with X, which is a thing that it gives a rundown in the beginning of the game, so you have a general idea of what's going on, which is perfectly fine, but that's not really why you want to play this game. This game looks gorgeous. It's got the classic 2D style of a Metroidvania, but with dynamic background, so there's always stuff going on in the background, and it's like 3D-esque, but looking at a 2D perspective, and it's very gorgeous, and it plays so smooth. Controlling Samus is so satisfying. Her abilities to just jump and maneuver around, and her weapon upgrades that she progressively gets throughout the series just feel so satisfying to do. And especially one of the big highlights of this game for me was the boss fights. I just thought the boss fights were very creative and very dynamic, and they looked really good, and they played really well. So overall, this was just a fantastic first experience for Metroid, and I don't think I'll ever go back because I don't think any of them would be as good as this one. But it does open it up for maybe I'll play some more Metroids in the future going forward. So definitely loved playing this game.
All right. Logan, you're 4?
I already talked about it a lot. Mario Party Superstars made it to my number 4 on the list. I guess the one thing I didn't really talk about was this game's so dang nostalgic, man. Just like the music and the mini games. It's like, man, they made a different song for every mini game in Mario Party, and it just brings me back to being like 10 years old playing these on GameCube or N64. It's just super nostalgic, and I didn't realize how much I cared about this series because it was always just like, oh yeah, I just play the new Mario Party with my family when it comes out. But since it's just been so long, it's like, man, I used to really like this series, and it's just been so fun to have it back. Playing with family online, playing with Zach whenever he comes up, and Zach still hasn't won a game. He thinks he's cursed at Mario Party.
I get second place, but I lose by like 1 game, and it's like
you've lost to me a couple times, but you've also lost to the computer.
Yeah, I've lost to the computer. I've lost to Logan. I'll lose to anybody.
You've got the Mario Party
ridiculous
curse. I've got the Fall Guys curse. You know?
Yeah.
It's real.
We've all got our own curses.
Yep, that's all I'll say about Mario Party.
All right, I actually have a game at number 4. Pokemon Brilliant Diamond. So I've talked about this game a lot, both the good and the bad. It's not perfect. It's got its issues. A lot of it has to do with the philosophies of new Pokemon games. But for me, it's carried just on its legacy of 15 years of Generation 4, of the Sinnoh region. I look back at those older regions as in comparison to what I've played now, and it's just so much more expansive with all of these optional routes that you can go down, an actual post game with things to do. The main game is ridiculously easy, but I appreciated how much more difficult the Elite Four was, because in Generation 4 that Elite Four was pretty challenging, partly due to the fact that the XP share wasn't as broken as it is now. But I appreciate that was still intact and was still an actual challenge. It capped off the game really well. The graphic style, when it isn't zoomed into the characters, looks solid. I wish they didn't do the zoom-ins. I don't know why they decided to do that, because it does not show off the game particularly well. But I think just in motion, in the world, the game looks solid. Yeah, it's got its issues, but I can't say I didn't have fun with it through my 25 hours, both playing through the Elite Four and doing the post game on the extra island. I've got complaints with it. Some things from Platinum should have been there that weren't. New Pokemon design I'm not a big fan of, but I still had a lot of fun. And I'd like to go back at some point maybe to play the Underground with some people. I haven't done that yet. And the Underground's like its own separate game like it was 15 years ago. So, yeah, despite its problems, I still had a blast with it at times.
Which I don't think you would say about the Gen 3 remakes. Is that right?
No, yeah, I didn't.
So that's good.
Yeah.
It's
better than those, I think.
This one seems like the most, like, very faithful. Like, it's not flashy at all. It's a very faithful remake, it seems, in a lot of ways to the originals, where I feel like we all felt that the Gen 3 remakes changed a lot of the core experience in bad ways. So yeah, I guess a straight remake is better for these old gens that outshine what Pokemon is doing now.
Yeah, that puts it into perspective. Some of these newer games that I played, like Sun and Moon and X and Y, it's just like oof.
Yeah, Sword and Shield, which you avoided.
Yeah, not
Luckily.
ever gonna play those. Anyways, let's move to number 3. Zach, what do you got on? We're into the top 3 now. What is
Into the
your
top 3,
number 3
the big
game
boys.
2021?
My number 3 game I gave to Halo Infinite, a game which came out at the tail end of the year. This was it was the year of Halo for me, so there was a lot riding on this game.
Wait, it was the year of Halo? Oh, is that what we're
I
dubbing
think
it?
technically it was
at
the
end
year of
the
Halo.
year?
I think technically, given the amount of games played, it was the year of Halo.
The year's narrative finds itself. It
Yeah.
finds itself on
So
its
what we've
own.
learned is
You
do
never
not
know.
call a year in January or
Tell it,
February.
yeah.
Just call it at the end.
Oh, after playing all of the Halos, some of them more than once, there was a lot riding on me wanting this game to be good, especially after 4 and 5 were such a letdown. 343 had a lot to prove to their audience that they could make a Halo that people enjoyed, especially some of the promises they made for Halo Infinite, saying that this was going to be Halo for the next 10 years. So there was a lot riding on this game. So going into it, I was already immediately disappointed because there was no co-op with your friends. You had to play the campaign alone. That was a big detractor of this. I wasn't going to play it, but the co-op got pushed till May, so I figured I might as well just play it by myself. And then other than that, some of the negatives, this would be higher if there weren't a few negatives, like the story, still way too Cortana focused, and the locales of the game, just no variation. You're either on the grassy outside open world or the Forerunner hallways. So those were my big complaints. But other than that, this is the best Halo's ever felt to me. The grappling hook opens up the open world. The mobility is fantastic. I love the fobs going and getting, support with other UNSC members and getting, guns and ammo and vehicles and all that good stuff. And then, choosing your routes and coming across enemies. And then the story altogether may not have been super strong, but it was still enjoyable. I liked the characters and I liked the boss fights and the way it was laid out. Some of the missions were very, very, high intensity, epic, very, very cool. So overall, it was better than I expected, which is great. That's good enough. It's a good start for Halo. And then not just that, but the multiplayer, very good. Had a chance to try that out with Logan. Again, started out with some flaws, but now that they've opened it up with more playlist options, it's great. Definitely a lot of fun. Definitely deserving of a top 3 spot.
All right. Logan, you're number 3?
Metroid Dread. I
Showing up
gave a
again.
glowing review to Metroid Dread on this show the weekend after it came out. It was really great. We've talked at length on the show, all 3 of us, on how we struggle to get into this genre. Metroidvanias are really, really tough for us to play. I don't feel like any of us really enjoy that type of game very much. And Metroid changed that for me for 2 reasons. It just feels amazing. It feels so fun to play. And it's really easy to find your way with just the smart way they have designed this world to make you feel like you're exploring and discovering things yourself, but you're actually walking along a pretty guided path that is designed to make you feel smart. And that's really cool. It's a really impressive world that they've put together. And it just looks amazing. And just the fact that this thing exists. Like, you look back at 2005, Metroid Dread was teased, and it took 16 years for it to come out on, it was going to come out on the Game Boy and then the DS, and now here it is on the Switch, like a decade and a half later. It's just an unbelievable story. And to see Nintendo return to a series that has desperately been starving for a new entry for so long was just super cool. At E3, when they're like, we know you want Prime 4, but here's this new 2D Metroid. That was one of the biggest mic drop moments of the year when this thing was revealed. And for it to turn out as good as it did was just really, really great. I love the combat. Zach mentioned the boss fights. It's some of the coolest 2D boss fights I've ever seen. I really like how dynamic it is, where sometimes the camera does zoom in to a third person behind the back perspective for some of those action shots. It's really cinematic and cool, but doesn't feel like you're watching a cutscene. It still feels like you're on your toes playing it. So yeah, I really, really loved Metroid. I think it's one of the Switch's best games. And And yeah, I've never finished a Metroid game really before this one. And then I plowed through this one in 7 days. So that should say something about how good this game is and how smooth it is and how good it feels to actually play.
Metroid's back. Just
It
like
is,
Mario
and
Party.
maybe
Now we'll
I
see what
hope
happens
it's
with
not
Prime.
And Halo's back too. Like, what year is it? What year are we living in right now?
Yeah,
It's bizarre.
5, 6,
Yeah.
something. All right, entering my top 3. Talked about it before. Mario 3D World, but more specifically Bowser's Fury. I guess for me, Mario 3D World isn't basically a new game, but I think Bowser's Fury stands by itself in an experience that you really need to play that came out in 2021. Some of the most fun I've had with any game this year, and it made me realize how starved I am for whatever comes after Mario Odyssey, because as good as Bowser's Fury was, it is short, which makes sense. It's just a little side activity alongside the more meatier Mario 3D World. But what was there was so good and so much fun that I just plowed through it in one sitting, and I'm waiting for what's next, like I have since Super Mario Odyssey came out so long ago in 2017. Yeah, it has whet my appetite. I've already talked a lot about it, but one of the most fun experiences I've had playing a game this year, and it gets me really excited for how they take the ideas in Bowser's Fury with its more open concept, along with the ideas that they've already established in Odyssey, hopefully to make an Odyssey 2 with the cat mechanic still there, but to improve on it even more. It was a ton of fun this year. And of course, Mario 3D World, playing that multiplayer was a ton of fun as well. So good.
Yeah. So Bowser's Fury was so good. I really hope 2022 is the year we hear what the Mario team is doing next. Whether it's Mario or that Donkey Kong game that we've heard is rumored that they're working on. Just whatever they're working on, I want to play it.
Because it'll be good, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I know it's good. Top 2, number 2, Zach, on your list.
All right, I gave my number 2 to Forza Horizon 5. It made my most surprising game of the year for a reason. I have talked about how much I love this game at length, so I won't say too much more. Just know that this game is fantastic, and if you have an Xbox, you should play it.
Good time. I want to play it. One of the first
Should
games I'm going to
definitely
play
play it.
whenever I pick up an Xbox this generation. It's probably going to be Forza. Very excited.
Yeah, I'll just add one more thing about it. It's just so cool. It's like the most customizable game I've ever played. Like, I know there's these people who are like, I want to tune my cars and race the hardest computers and have to shift myself, and I don't want the blue line on. And then there's me and Zach that are just like just cruising around, like, doesn't matter. Computers are easy as heck. Got the driving line on, and it's really cool that they're like, yeah, whatever you want to do, you can make it.
Yeah, that's always been really impressive with Forza, is how customizable like difficulties and things are. You know, you can change how realistic the car feels if you want that driving line on, manual or automatic. The level of difficulty with the CPUs, that's always been a really strong point of the Forza games and Forza Horizon, that you can really tailor it to your playstyle and what you have fun playing.
Yeah.
Logan, your number 2?
Halo Infinite is my number 2, and
Wow.
it feels so good to say it. It feels so good that this game is good. I don't think there was a game this year I was more cautious about than Halo Infinite, just with the story that we've talked about on this show from its review. It was revealed like 4 years ago, and now it's here finally after a lot of troubles along the way. And the campaign and the multiplayer I both love. Once again, it was very similar to Mario Party, a series I haven't cared about in this case since like Halo 4 was the last time I cared. Halo 5 just really killed my love for this thing. And through college, didn't play it at all, didn't really talk or play Halo. And then afterwards, it's like, man, Halo is a really big series for me. I really care about it. And to see it come back this big was just so exciting. The campaign is fantastic. It has those couple of shortcomings, like Zach mentioned. We feel the same about those, but I never thought that there'd be a mechanic that makes me not want to drive a warthog or a ghost. But the grappling hook is that much fun to swing around in. It's a total game changer. And then the multiplayer, free to play. They launched it early, which was super cool. And it's just awesome. It's just so much fun to be in Slayer again, in Capture the Flag, on maps that I think are largely great. Playing with friends, playing with family. It's just, I feel like Halo is absolutely back, and I'm sold on this being kind of the the base for what this series is the next 10 years. And I didn't think I'd say that 2 months ago. I didn't think this game was going to be as successful as it's turned out to be.
You never know with these games that have long development cycles and year-plus long delays, but glad that it came out and was able to live up to the hype of that long of a wait.
And like December, I was like, last December we were talking about how bad Cyberpunk was. Are we going to be doing that again with Halo? And no, it was very much the opposite of that. Although the Halo community has been very toxic towards this game, which sucks because I think it's just a blast. But that's another problem.
Yeah, that's just online communities, I think.
Yeah.
That can be really toxic just in general. All right. Yeah. My number 2, it had to show up somewhere on this list. Lost Judgment. It's not number 1, though. What could number 1 be?
For the first time in what feels like a long time,
it hasn't been a Yakuza
it's not
game.
Number 1.
And I think it is because of its story. It's not a bad story, and it's got some really good moments, some really good reveals, but looking at it in the lens of the first game, it's just not as strong, and I think the ending sequences aren't as impactful as that first game was. And it's hard to outdo that one, because that last little bit of the original Judgment was so good, where things are getting revealed and you're doing these boss fights and you're going to these areas for the last time. Super good. It was hard to one up that, but beyond the story having some points that I don't know if I agreed with, the rest of the game, the gameplay is so good. The combat, of course, it was really refreshing to go back to that original Yakuza style of combat after Like a Dragon that switched to the RPG mode, with the different fighting stances. The world with Yokohama and Tokyo and Kamurocho is always a blast to run around in. They always pack these worlds with interesting things to do, and that's the key. They're interesting. They have their own little stories. They've got all of these different mini games. You can go skateboarding. You can do the little VR game. You can go and help the kids at the school. You can do some missions for the detective agency. You can just run around and do fights and go into the stores and stuff. There's always so much to do in these games, and Lost Judgment is no exception. It's some of the best that the series has ever been with its side content, and I've been meaning to get back to it. I've been playing other games to try and wrap up this year, so I have more games to talk about this year, but I definitely want to go back because there's still a bunch of stuff that I haven't seen. There's a lot of side stories and side games that I want to do and want to experience, and you can play Sonic the Fighters in it. So, and I beat it.
The game.
There's my that wasn't on my list of games that I beat that didn't come out this year. Sonic the
Sonic
Fighters.
the Fighters.
Unfortunately.
Sonic Minecraft could be your number 5.
Oh, there we go. Sonic Minecraft. Awful.
Absolutely horrible.
But Lost Judgment, despite problems with the story, is still an absolute blast to play through, and I'm excited, at least for Zach to play through it, because you have it now. It is in your possession.
I just got it. I loaded it up. I haven't started it yet, but I'm very excited to play it.
Because it's a bunch of fun.
It's on my list for next year, too.
My New Year
what
game.
happened to that? Fell off on it?
I play it with my girlfriend watches me play that game, and we just kind of both got individually busy at different times and didn't have time to sit down together and play through a huge game like that.
Well, hopefully you'll have time for it next year, because it is worth your time. Maybe the last Judgment game there is.
No, Lost Judgment or Last Judgment?
True. They should have renamed it.
Why didn't they just name it The Last Judgment?
To really have it set in that this is it.
Yeah.
Sad. All right, let's get into our individual games of the year. Zach, I don't think this is a surprise, but what do you got for Game of the Year?
This probably isn't a surprise, given how much I complained about not having a PS5 in order to play this game, and then eventually being able to play it on Logan's PS5. But my number 1 game of 2021 has to go to Deathloop. I don't think it's close.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved Deathloop. I knew I would. I've always been a huge fan of Arcane Studios, starting with the Dishonored series. The Dishonored games I've played a dozen times a piece. I'm just a huge fan of that, so I knew after seeing the endless amount of trailers that they had for Deathloop that it was going to be a very similar playing game with the magic style stealth, but with much more modern gunplay, variation, but still with the 60s jazzy aesthetic. I mean, it was absolutely everything I hoped it would be. It was a ton of fun. It had a ton of freedom. It played exactly like Dishonored. The characters were super interesting. I enjoyed all of the visionaries. The voice acting was incredible. The sound design, the soundtrack, the visual aesthetic, everything just fell into place to create an experience that I absolutely loved. And I feel like I think about this game every day, and some of the story implications at the end, I just can't get enough of it. It lived up to my expectations, and my expectations were super high. So I very much would love to give Odie for Game of the Year 2021 to Deathloop.
Congratulations, Deathloop.
Congrats
Your
to Deathloop.
statue will come in the mail at some
Yeah.
point. We'll need to procure more of these statues.
When they go on sale and clearance on Amazon for $10, we'll just load up.
For many years to come on the Odies. Logan, do you want to tag team this? We got the same game.
Yeah, let's
at
do
number
it.
one. What is our number one game? What do we give our Odie to for 2020?
We give our Odie for our favorite game this year to the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles 2 and the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles in general. So the Great Ace Attorney 2 Resolve is the second one in this dual collection that came out this year. You've heard us gush about it the last 6 months, basically, since I was first playing it. Kevin just recently finished it. But yeah, it's our number one. Kev, you want to talk about it first?
Yeah, it's hard to talk about, especially the second game in the duology without spoiling anything. But as always, the story is fantastic, and there are a lot of surprises in there, and I appreciated that the first game had a lot of things that tied in, where the first game had some issues with pacing, the whole thing of you're only in one area, you never go back out to investigate again, but they remedied that with the second game. But I appreciated that a lot of these storylines come together from that first game. Some of the stuff you kind of expect to come back, and of course there are certain things where you kind of have a feeling that something is going to happen there. But sometimes it'll surprise you with how it decides to have some of these things happen. You have an idea that this is going to happen, and it does, but maybe not in the way you expect. And that was one of the best things of those final couple of cases, is that the things came together kind of in the way you expected, but maybe kind of not. And I really appreciated that. The characters are great. I love Herlock. He's great, and the role that he plays as you get further and further into the game, where of course he's the bumbling idiot, of course, but some of his moments at the end of the game were really great too. And yeah, some of the reveals, story, great game. Loved it a lot.
Yeah, it's I hate it when people just play it for 20 hours and then it gets great, which is not totally the case here, because the first game is still very good. It was still very enjoyable, but then just that second one just hits. It just never slows down. It is just rapid fire pacing the whole way through. Case 2 and 3 are some of maybe the best second case and the best third case the series has ever seen. Unbelievable. And this is another series. It's the same as Mario Party, where I'm like, it's never going to be as good as it was. And Monkey Ball, which will never be as good as it was, where Ace Attorney really peaked with the DS era. It stumbled into the 3DS era a little bit, and I still very much enjoyed the games. 6 was the last one that came out here, and that was 2016, 5 years ago, and I really did enjoy that game, but it still just felt a little different. The original creator wasn't here, and you could tell the writing wasn't from the same mind that wrote that amazing original trilogy. And then I just had really muted expectations, because since 2016, since Spirit of Justice came out, I have since gone on to play Uncharted and The Last of Us and these other games with phenomenal storytelling. And I'm like, is Ace Attorney going to still hold the torch of my favorite story? And then I play The Great Ace Attorney 1, and I'm like, ooh, that's one of the worst games in the series. All of them are very good, but it was still lower on the ladder. And then 2, I think, is my favorite story ever in a game, because it's that good. It's that enthralling. You care about the character so much. Herlock Sholmes is an absolute gem. I love him so dearly, and I'm just so thrilled with this game that just blew my expectations out of the water and just Ace Attorney really cemented itself after a few years off as my favorite series. And to see Kevin really enjoy these two, to see Zach fall in love with the 5 games he's finished so far, it's just really cool that at least on this show, Ace Attorney was back this year in a big way. And yeah, I'm really happy about it.
And it's such a great package too, that the Chronicles. Of course, it's got the 2 games in there, but all of the extras, you have little side stories where there's certain dialogues that happen in between cases or during cases in the first game that they just kind of threw in as a little bonus. So I've been playing through those, and it's been fun to have some more time with some of these characters. There are some moving pictures that are not just the cutscenes, but they seem to be their own little stories that I also haven't dove into yet, but there's stuff to watch there. They have achievements that you can go after if you want to do that. They have different outfits that you can put the characters in, and they've got an art gallery that's not just art, but each individual piece of art also has a little description from the artist talking about that design or talking about that character. There is so much content in a collection that was only $40 at launch.
$40.
Incredible value, alongside the fact that just a couple of great games all around.
Although, real quick, don't go in there until you finish both games, because there is art and there's a couple things that you don't want to see until you've seen some of the twists of the story. So just a big disclaimer, don't dive into that extras menu until you finish both games.
It's good to know.
When it's there for you, you'll have more stuff to do once the credits roll on the main games. So,
and it totally makes sense why Capcom felt, beyond just that this takes place in an era that's much more difficult to translate into modern day English than the other Ace Attorney games. But also, I can see why they were hesitant to bring the first game over, because it probably wouldn't have sold well, and they probably would have never brought the second over. So I'm really, because that's what happened with Miles. They brought the first one over, it sold like crap, and they never brought the second one over, which is the far superior game. And I'm really glad that they waited like they did to release these both at once, so there was no stress about, like, are we ever going to see the sequel to this game, which is the far better game. And I'm really happy that it took like 6 years to finally make its way over here, but now that it's here, it's in my top 5 games of all time.
Very good translation too. Never had any issues with
awesome.
it. And the different accents they put on these characters from so long ago, depending on where they're from. Sometimes I couldn't understand it fully, but I thought that was kind of part of the charm, was that I'm like, I don't know if I understand what you're saying exactly, but that makes it kind of fun when they're from Scotland or something like that, where it's just like, what are you talking about? And that they were able to convey that with just the text. I thought they did a great job in the translation.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, we have reached the main event, the Odie's Game of the Year. Before we get into the actual Game of the Year, we got 4 other categories. We've got Best Soundtrack, Best Art Direction, Best Indie, and Best Multiplayer. We're going to start it off with the Best Soundtrack. Drum roll, please. What do we got? Life is Strange, True Colors.
Woo!
Logan and Zach, you want to talk about True Colors for Best Soundtrack?
Yes, I do. True Colors is the newest entry into the Life is Strange franchise, made by Deck 9. This is their first full entry into the series. Life is Strange is very known for having an indie vibe with lots of different indie artists and songs just strewn throughout the game at moments of reflection and stuff like that. And True Colors holds true to that. But not only that, the main theme and all of the little, like, walking around, just little tunes, they're all really atmospheric, and I think it all fits very well because this game does rely very heavily on vibe, really, because there's even a character who works at a DJ booth, even got her own DLC, and this DLC is also really heavily musically influenced. Music plays a huge part in this game. I think it pulled it off really well, and it's just good to see it get some recognition, even if it wasn't in our top games of the year.
Yeah, this would have been in my top 10 for sure. Really enjoyed True Colors. And yeah, the angsty teenager vibe that the Life is Strange series consistently goes for and nails pretty well is largely in part accomplished because of its music, and True Colors is just the next entry in that. And music's always a big focus too. Like you said, there's a record store here, and Alex, the main character, plays guitar. So that's a big part of it too. And yeah, there's even points in the game where you just sit down and like they're little like reflection moments, and it just shows what's happening out in nature. Shows your character like sitting on some bench, and there's just some nice indie tune playing in the background. So yeah, it's a really nice soundtrack, and also a really good game that we wanted to make sure to fit in the show.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Life is Strange: True Colors, best soundtrack, receiving that Odie. All right, next up we've got best art direction for the Odie. It goes to Forza Horizon 5. It comes back again.
Yep.
From the two people that played it. Why does it win best art direction? Or visual?
Well, art direction is a really hard category to pin down. It's very open in terms of interpretation, but I think that either way you look at it, Forza Horizon probably hits it very well. Forza Horizon is one of the most gorgeous games Logan and I have ever played. And like we said, sometimes we just go in there and drive around just to look around at stuff. I mean, it is absolutely gorgeous. Logan, any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's to me the most next-gen looking game so far. And I'm not even playing on the most powerful version of it on Series X since we're playing on Series S, but it just looks stunning. And we were talking about this before the show. It's just a game you can just drive around for like a half hour, not doing anything meaningful, because it's just such a beautiful world. And just the way it's designed also just shows off its visuals brilliantly. Just this giant volcano looming in the distance that just looks so cool, no matter what angle of the map you're at. And the cars, just the reflections on the cars look amazing. It's just a gorgeous game. The only thing that doesn't look great is the people. The people look a little jank sometimes, but you barely ever see them. So the cars, the world, it's so much fun to drive through. And when you get going upwards of 200 miles an hour in a sports car, just ripping through these streets, 60 frames a second, it looks amazing.
All right, congratulations to Forza Horizon 5. Wins the Odie for best art direction. Moving on, we've got best indie. The award goes to...
All right.
Imposter Factory. I really wanted to play this game. It came out pretty recently. I just didn't have the time to
Came out in
sit down and
September,
play
Kevin.
it. So,
you had so much time.
I was trying to finish Great Ace Attorney by the end of this. So
That's
Zach,
true. That game
why
took a long
does
time.
Imposter Factory win a best indie game of the year for us?
Yes. Not to detract anything from Imposter Factory, but we did not collectively play a lot of indie games this year, so we didn't really have a lot to choose from. But that being said, I did play Imposter Factory, the third mainline game in the To the Moon franchise, created mostly by one guy, Con Gao. He's a great storyteller. I love the way he portrays his characters in these games. This one, in a year of time loops, this game's also a time loop game, so it fits right in. I think it's really a game that's been in development for so long. It really came out at a good time, right in the midst of this time loop craze, which I really enjoyed. It shifts focus to some brand new characters, still retains a lot of the humor, but also that emotional core that these games always have. And yeah, it's I think it's better than Finding Paradise. I don't think I like it as much as To the Moon, but I think it's upward trending, and I really enjoyed playing it. And it's a fun sitting game. It only takes a few hours to play, and it's just a nice little story. Continue the greater ideas that this franchise has going on. So I'm glad to give it our 2021 Indie Game of the Year.
All right, congratulations to Imposter Factory for the indie Odie.
I guess Stardew Valley 2.0 almost could have counted for this category.
Yeah.
Played a lot of.
Talk about Stardew Valley too much. Need to talk about some other games for a little while, I think.
And there's some indies I want to get to from this year for sure that maybe could come up on the favorite games next year that didn't come out. Like I'm going to play Kena Bridge of Spirits for sure. Is Kena? I just bought it on sale, and Chicory I'm going to play. So there's the indies this year did not go unnoticed by us. There's just too much to do all the time right now.
All right, we've got one more award before we get into our game of the year, and this one is the multiplayer Odie. The award goes to Halo Infinite. It's back again with its multiplayer. Logan, you have been playing the multiplayer of Halo Infinite a ton over the past month or so.
Yeah.
Why does it win Best Multiplayer, Odie?
Because the only problems people really have with it, aside from the playlists, which they're working to fix, is cosmetic progression. And at the end of the day, that means nothing to me, especially in a first-person game where you barely ever look at your Spartan. It's about the look and feel. And 343 nailed it this time. It just brings me back to the days playing some of the old ones online. And what I love about Halo multiplayer, opposed to something I like Call of Duty, is that no matter how much you've played, how good you are, you just start with the same stuff every time. You start with the assault rifle and the pistol. It's an even playing ground. You got to go find weapons and equipment yourself. And I just think that makes it so welcoming. It's so easy to just be like, oh, I haven't played for a couple weeks. That's fine. I'll just hop back in. And I'm not behind. I may be behind in skill level, but that's something to brush off after a few games. And just playing the team modes is super fun. I'm super glad they split up Slayer now, so you can just play that if you want and don't have to do stuff like Oddball and other things like that. But it's just a return to form. We've talked about it the last month and a half, that this multiplayer is the best Halo has felt since Reach. And I think for that, it deserves best multiplayer, because it also had a lot to prove that in a post-Fortnite world, with all these battle royales and other games, that Halo could evolve and be this free-to-play service that people keep coming back to. And I think in its first couple months, there's been some bumps, but it's a good start. And I'm excited to see its first full year of content, how that game continues to evolve.
Zach, any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I had no intention of playing the multiplayer. I was mainly interested in the campaigns of the Halo series. I have never played the Halo multiplayer prior to Infinite, but Logan pestered me enough to where I got into it, tried it out. I liked it a lot more than I thought I would. I was a lot better than I thought I would. I thought I would just go into it and get absolutely destroyed by everybody who was a god, but like Logan said, an even playing field really turns things around. So yeah, I actually had a lot of fun playing it, and the most part, I like modes, not just specific modes like Slayer, but yeah, I liked most of the modes. So even now that they're adding these playlist customizations, I never really super minded the getting random games. It just kept things fresh, I think. So overall, had a pretty good time, and probably play some more in the future.
All right. Congratulations to Halo Infinite. Wins the Odie for Best Multiplayer. And we have reached the final award, the most important award.
The
Game of
Odie.
the year.
Odie.
The one and only. We only got the one. This is the most important one. Let's see who it goes to. The award for Game of the Year goes to The Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, specifically the second game, Resolve. But
yes,
the collection as a whole, I think, is deserving of it, especially because neither of the games ever came out here. So for all the Western players, it is both of them brand new games for 2021. We were talking about it a lot before, since it made both mine and Logan's top games of the year. But yeah, just a fantastic narrative-driven experience. The first game, while not as strong as the second game, sets up things that are very vital for the second game that really come full circle. Has a lot of surprises in store, a lot of extra content for you to do when the story wraps, and a lovable cast of characters. Logan, I know you love this series so much. Any other thoughts on it for Game of the Year 2021?
Yeah, just go play it. We've said everything we can without getting into spoiler territory, which is the most important thing about this game. But Kevin has not played the entire Ace Attorney franchise. This game won his Game of the Year, so you don't need to play
pretty
all of
standalone,
them. Zach is playing all of them because
Do I not need to play all of them?
you don't
Have I
need
been
to.
lied to?
No.
I think it's ideal to.
I had just as good of an experience, I think.
The reason that Zach is going on this journey to play them all in a row is because he gets to play the best for last when he plays the Great Ace Attorney 2 and finish on the highest note.
Sixth mainline game, or do I want to end on the best Ace Attorney game? Who knows?
Exactly. So yeah, if you have never played this series, go and play it. Play the original trilogy. I was hoping with how good this game was, it would get more traction, like a Yakuza 0, like how that just launched that series to the moon. It unfortunately didn't seem to happen, which is a bummer, but it's not too late for you to go and play what we think is the best game that came out this year.
Yeah, you don't need an introduction to the rest of the series. You can discover this series with the Great Ace Attorney and still have a fantastic time, and then go back and play the other trilogy that's on Switch. And if you want to keep going, there's a bunch more games, and hopefully this game sold well enough that Capcom decides to bring over more games that aren't in the collections yet and make new games as well.
Please, it can't die. I feel like Ace Attorney's been on life support for so long.
Hopefully this is the mark of it coming back after years of being dormant. But
I would hope so. Now that I'm invested so much time.
Now that Zach's in it, it's saved.
Yeah.
The world is saved.
All right, guys, I got this.
Yep.
Yeah, game of the year. Congratulations to the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. What an experience this year.
Deserved, I assume.
And that's it for us for 2021. What a year.
What a year.
It still feels like 2020 sometimes.
Yeah, it does.
This year is flown by, but there's a lot of good games. And, of course, there's a bunch of great games that we didn't have time for and that we weren't able to talk about in this show that I'm sure come next year we'll have some time to play and talk about. And I'm sure that they'll show up on lists of some kind at this time next year. But for the games that we played this year, it was a good year. Good year for games.
Yeah, and some games that we did play that Zach and I's lists were longer than the new games Kevin played this year. So, some things we didn't get to talk about, like we really enjoyed No More Heroes 3, as janky as it was. WarioWare came back this year and was really, really great. So yeah, overall, I think this was a solid year. It didn't quite have that huge thing that I feel like everyone talked about. Like some years have had. I think of like the last year Last of Us, Ghost of Tsushima, Spider-Man God of War, Zelda, Mario Odyssey. It didn't have a lot of that, but I think this year had a lot of cool series come back that hadn't been around for a while, and some new IP like Deathloop or like Returnal that people seem to really enjoy. So solid year, especially as developers continue to work under these pandemic conditions. So I was really happy with it overall.
Zach, any final thoughts from 2021 in games?
I played a lot of games this year. I think I played the most games this year that I've played any year in my entire life. So I might be burnt out next year.
What is your final tally?
Games next year. Well, can't foresee myself beating any other games this year. I think that my final number ended up counting Halo 2 twice.
But you haven't played it twice. I counted twice.
I played it once on Legendary, which was like a whole thing.
Yeah, that's a whole other beast. 45?
45 games. 5 shy of Logan's big 50-year last year.
Yeah, there were so many times this year where Zach just rolls into the show and is like, yeah, I beat like 4 games this year. And this week and started 2 more. And it's like, what happened? What is going on over here?
There was definitely like one week where I beat 4 Halos and like 1 Ace Attorney and then like 1 other game. It was ridiculous.
Crazy.
I want to ask you guys real quick, what do you think we'll be sitting here holding up this trophy for next year for Game of the Year?
Ooh, for all 3 of us, that's a hard one to gauge.
Yeah.
For me, for my personal Game of the Year, I want it to be Saints Row. I'm not going to say that it is because they got a lot to prove. The series has been MIA for the last like 8 years, so I don't know if it's going to be good or not. But I would be really happy sitting here and saying that Saints Row is my favorite game of 2022. But I don't know.
How about you, Zach?
The Wild 2?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope it's mine.
Better come out next year.
For a lot of reasons, I hope it's mine. I hope that they add dungeons and bring back some of that classic Zelda stuff that was missing. And I just hope it hits next year. That's really all there is to it. If it hits next year, I imagine it will be mine. If Sports Story hits next
they
year,
came back.
They did.
Twitter is alive.
Come back. They tweeted "Happy Holidays. Work is ongoing."
So
like a Christmas screenshot.
We could be years away.
He knew the game didn't stall out and die. I mean, of course they're still working on it.
Yeah, Sports Story, I hope, is on my list somewhere.
So that could be our Game of the Year collectively if it comes out, because we'll all play it right away.
Yep.
And it'll probably be really good.
I hope it is. I've been waiting for that game. Like, it is. Yeah. it is entering like legend status of just like how long we've talked about it and how long we're waiting for it and all the delays. I hope it comes out next year. It'll be on my list for sure.
Sonic Frontiers, I hope comes out next year.
God.
And I hope is okay, at least.
If it comes out next year, I don't think it's going to be very good.
Yeah.
It probably needs more time.
Probably.
Going off of past Sonic games. But who knows? Maybe they could just pull something out and it's actually good. And we're playing Shadow of the Colossus 2. Amy's dead.
Amy's
dead.
All right. That's going to be it for 2021. Next time we're all sitting here talking, it will be 2022. Got a lot in store for 2022. A year of rumors. My God. It's going to be an experience talking about
a year of rumors.
Talking about Sonic Frontiers. Of course, talking about games that came out this year that we're finally getting a chance to play. And, of course, all the other new games that will come out in 2022. But that's going to be it for this year. We're here on Thursdays or Fridays on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, other podcast streaming services that you may use. ODieGames.com has the audio version. If you want to see the award being given out and the special guest that made some time to show up as live audience for tonight's show, you can catch
win runner-up for biggest disappointment.
It didn't win the biggest disappointment, so there's that. You can check out the video version of the podcast that goes up every week on YouTube. We're on Twitter at ODieGames. You can send an email with your list of the top 5 games. Both you can send it to us on Twitter or to our email, odiegamescast@gmail.com. For Logan and Zach, I'm Kevin. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great rest of the year and have a nice new year, and we'll see you in 2022.